So Julian Assange is in some serious trouble. Check this out. The Department of Justice is reportedly preparing to prosecute WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and hopes to try him in a U.S. courtroom. The Wall Street Journal reported Thursday, citing people familiar with the matter, that prosecutors have been discussing different charges to level against Assange and how to bring him back to the U.S. Ecuador granted Assange asylum in 2012, and he has been living in that country's embassy in London ever since. However, Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno, who was elected last year, has reportedly soured on Assange. So that's the Hill on an original article from the Wall Street Journal. Apparently, the U.S. government accidentally let this information out when discussing a different matter. There was an indication in there that indeed they have a sealed indictment against Julian Assange. So they go on to say that charges against Assange could include violating the Espionage Act, which criminalizes releasing information regarding national defense. And Assange has been the subject of a Department of Justice investigation since 2010, when his organization released or leaked thousands of classified reports on the war in Afghanistan. So, there was speculation, hey, maybe it's on a different matter, and therefore it would be more reasonable, and it would be something that we're unaware of, a crime that we're unaware of that perhaps he committed. That's not the case. And in all seriousness, if he were to be found guilty, that really is, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here or anything, but that's the death of the First Amendment in the Constitution. We're already at a point right now where various aspects of the Constitution are just overlooked and ignored, and they basically functionally don't exist anymore because the government has overridden them. Like a protection from cruel and unusual punishment, well, we do torture, so that's dead. The Eighth Amendment is dead. Following due process, that's effectively dead too, whether it's with Guantanamo Bay or with the fact that we did a drone strike on U.S. citizens, whether it's Anwar al-Awlaki or his son Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. But to this point, in terms of the First Amendment, yes, we have been, I think the proper interpretation of the First Amendment has been, the approach that the U.S. government has taken for decades now. And if we go down this path, and if Julian Assange is found guilty, yeah, that's the death of the First Amendment. And here's the thing. If you go after Julian Assange for what he did with WikiLeaks in releasing all that information on our illegal wars, well, you also have to go after the New York Times, and you also have to go after the Guardian, and you also have to go after other Washington Post and other high-profile, honestly, more establishment outlets, because they also reported on this information. So the idea that you criminalize something like this, that is just criminalizing journalism. If somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I'm a whistleblower, here's top secret information or classified information, and in my estimation, the government is keeping this stuff classified, not because it should be classified, but because they're trying to cover their own ass, which is why I have a conscience, and I'm a whistleblower, and I'm going to expose wrongdoings from our government. The idea that you take the person who reported that and you try them on the Espionage Act, think of the precedent that sets. That means that anything, by definition, that the government declares as top secret or classified, that's all legit. That all really should be top secret and classified. And you can never, ever be a whistleblower and do the job that a reporter is supposed to do, which is hold people in power accountable for their actions. And remember, in the case of Julian Assange, with what Chelsea Manning gave Julian Assange, we learned so many important things from those leaks. Like, for example, our soldiers in Iraq killed civilians and killed journalists, and then did a double tap on it. When the first responders came, we blew up the first responders as well. And so it was massacring civilians, not caring, and also you heard them laughing as they were doing it, So these are war crimes. So he uncovered war crimes, and just so you know, he has to hide, and he has to escape prosecution. The people who actually massacred the civilians did never faced any charges. Let's remember that. Edward Snowden has to hide overseas too when he exposed the giant warrantless spying system that we have. He has to hide. He has to seek asylum elsewhere, whereas the people who set up that system never faced any charges. So this is the inverting of justice. That's what this is. Now, understand, I'm not somebody who in what we know now about Julian Assange, I'm not somebody who's going to defend him in terms of his political sensibilities, because it is true, we covered the story from The Intercept. They originally reported this, how there were private messages with Julian Assange and others, and he basically said, I think it's better in the long run if Republicans win in the 2016 election, and he believed, I think, in the backlash theory, which is the idea that shit has to get way worse before it gets better. So allow the monster to get in there, then we could burn the system down and build it back up from the ground up and have a better system of government. So it is true that he preferred Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton, and he preferred that the Republicans, take Congress, take the Senate, and that was his estimation. And perhaps it is the case that he had these leaks on Hillary Clinton and the DNC's corruption, and he released them. And maybe it is true that if he had somehow gotten his hands on the RNC's, dirt, whether it's RNC emails that show their corruption, that he wouldn't have released them. I mean, that certainly is possible based on what I've seen about his political sensibilities in the 2016 election, that he released the stuff on DNC corruption, but even if he had the RNC corruption stuff, he wouldn't release it. That's certainly possible. And to those ends, I totally disagree with Julian Assange. I don't agree with his analysis of the 2016 election. I don't believe in the counterintuitive thinking of just let the worst candidates win because something mental jujitsu, then everything will get better. I don't agree with them on that. And certainly, if I was in control of WikiLeaks, and what I would want is dirt on both of the sides. I would want to release the information on DNC corruption, and I would want to release the information on RNC corruption, and I would actively look for both. So, and I don't know if that's the case. In fact, I don't think he would have done that. I think he favored more, let's expose the DNC and leave the RNC alone, because his sensibility said it's better if the Republicans win. So I totally disagree with him on that. But that's irrelevant. That has nothing to do with whether or not what he's done, and specifically what he's done in regards to the leaks on the wars, whether or not that's legit. And again, if you criminalize him for doing that, what you're saying is the First Amendment is no longer a thing. And now, and by the way, Obama, who was famously tough on whistleblowers, even his administration was like, okay, we simply cannot prosecute WikiLeaks and Assange, because if we prosecute WikiLeaks and Assange, there's no way we can make that argument and not also have to go after Washington Post, New York Times, The Guardian, and all these other high-profile outlets that reported on the same things that we learned from his leaks. So you can't do that, but guess what? The Trump administration doesn't give a fuck. And of course, there is an irony here that Julian Assange's leaks probably ended up helping Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And, in Julian Assange's mind, he's probably thinking, hey, maybe there's a chance I could get, I could be granted some sort of grace or immunity from the Trump administration, and they look the other way. And it's possible that he was thinking that. And then now, of course, that's not going to happen. Trump famously said on the campaign trail, "I love WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks." Well, Julian, to put any eggs in the Trump basket was a terrible idea, and it's being proven right now because Trump is a puppet to the establishment and to the deep state. I mean, Mike Pompeo is in his administration. John Bolton is in his administration. These are guys who always had it out for people like Julian Assange. The establishment on the Democratic side and the Republican side want to bring down Julian Assange. I mean, that's just what it is. And at least with the Obama administration, they were somewhat aware of the precedent it would set, and they cared to some extent of the precedent it would set if you went after Assange. But the Trump administration does not care. They don't give a fuck, because they'd rather give more power to the state to crack down on journalists and whistleblowers and leakers, because they simply do not want information leaking that might make them look bad. The establishment never wants information leaking that would make them look bad. So fuck it. Yeah, prosecute them. Who cares? If what Assange did when it came to the wars was not whistleblowing, there is no such thing as whistleblowing. I mean, by this logic, you also should have gone after Daniel Ellsberg. Remember with the Pentagon Papers? He released all this information. Oh my God, we're using Agent Orange and napalm on innocent villagers in Vietnam. We're committing war crimes. Now, at the time, everybody was like, how dare you? You're leaking on our wonderful and noble government. But now today, everybody looks back and they go, oh, we were a bunch of idiots. Daniel Ellsberg's a hero. Well, on the issue of the war stuff that Assange leaked and Chelsea Manning leaked, yeah, I mean, there's still people in the establishment who think like, oh, they're evil and wrong because they're leaking on the noble government. But everybody with a conscience and everybody who's even minimally objective goes, oh, no, it's what he did is like the heart of what journalism is supposed to be. And then there's the point of, if you are in the mainstream media and you were just falling all over yourself to defend Jim Acosta, and by the way, I defended Jim Acosta. The president can't fucking willy-nilly say, I don't like your questions or your tone, now I'm going to revoke your press pass. Fuck off. I think that is against the First Amendment. I do. So I defended Jim Acosta, and I chastise all the people on the right who say they care about free speech, but then they didn't speak up on this, and a free press, but they didn't speak up on this. But for the media to fall all over themselves defending Jim Acosta, and then now have nothing to say about Julian Assange, they are nothing but the grossest kind of hypocrites. Because when you actually have, some leaks that really do threaten power and authority, and these are leaks that expose wrongdoing, when you actually have those kind of leaks, I mean, that's the perfect time for you to stand up and say, no, I really do believe in the First Amendment and the Constitution and free speech and a free press. If you're not standing up then you're just hacks. I mean, people screamed about, oh my God, Trump is hostile to the Constitution and the First Amendment, when Trump was mean to Chuck Todd and Wolf Blitzer, when he was just mean to them and he tweeted mean things at them. Are you fucking kidding me? The president's allowed to be mean to reporters. That's not at all a violation of the First Amendment, not even close. Now, when Trump goes too far and he says shit like, oh, we should have licenses to, take away their license if they report fake news. When he says shit like that, yes, that is hinting at something that's totally unconstitutional. But, I mean, come on, man. Being mean to a reporter, you're going to cry about that as if it's a violation of the Constitution. Then when they actually say they're going to go after a guy who's done important leaks under the Espionage Act, you have nothing to say about it? I've seen nothing in mainstream media about this on Julian Assange coming to his defense. Nothing. So it's crazy, man. It is absolutely nuts. And what a horrendous precedent it would set. I mean, again, the precedent this would set is next time we learn something, let's say we learn some detailed leaks about what's going on right now, and the government is planning to take over or to do regime change in Iran, which, by the way, I do think that's what's going on with Pompeo and Bolton and Trump. And I do think that in these meetings, they're literally talking about how do we overthrow the government in Iran. Let's say there are leaks in the future where that comes out. And then let's say I report on it, a bunch of other YouTubers report on it, other mainstream outlets report on it. Well, if they go down this path and go after Assange for this, by that same logic, by that same legal precedent, all of us could be prosecuted because we discussed something that was top secret, classified, even though it shouldn't be. And even though it was leaked in good faith as a whistleblower who's trying to, uncover wrongdoing and abuse of power and things of that nature. But by this legal logic, yeah, we're fair game. You can come after us. You could sue us because, oh my God, you're exposing state secrets. So it's just, it's devastating. It's devastating, and everybody should defend Julian Assange, even if you don't like him. And listen, I'm at the point where I don't like him, but it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. I don't agree with his political sensibilities, but this is a matter of principle. And everybody should stand up on this principle because it is one of the most important legal principles that make up enlightened modern civilization.